Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and rate on Apple, iTunes, all that good stuff. Today's episode will be a lot different. Of course, at the time of this recording, it was, early this morning that Coach Mike Leach was reported that he had passed away. And, the whole coaching world, football, college coaches, high school coaches, are all mourning. They're all coming together, and it's a hard time for football coaches. So this episode is just going to be talking about a little bit about Mike Leach. Now, I never had the honor or opportunity to meet him. I almost was able to figure out. I know some coaches out there that I'm sure the coaching Twitter community knows some coaches that have got to meet Coach Leach, and the small chance of maybe heading to Mississippi State and maybe getting the opportunity to meet him. I could have figured out a way to reach out to the right people and gone to see him. And I found a reason not to. And I know that sounds crazy if you could figure out an opportunity to go meet Coach Leach, well, how can you? Well, it's a long drive. Other things. I coach football, basketball, baseball now. I used to do track. And it's just one of those things where, you find a way to get out of those things. And so what I'm going to talk about is not knowing Coach Leach personally whatsoever. He has replied to a couple of my tweets a few years ago, which I thought was one of the best things ever. Just talking about what I think he meant to the football coaching community of college and a lot of high school. He was very well known, I think, to a lot of people. I think people don't even really watch football, college football, know who Mike Leach is. He's that guy on TV that gets to a press conference and talks about anything. Bigfoot, aliens, getting married, Sasquatch, student loans, which was hilarious. Pirates, talking about how to do a shovel pass. He would talk about anything, how he hated candy corn. You never really knew what's going to come out of his mouth. And that was the great thing, I think, as a reporter. I want to ask reporters, how calm were they asking Coach Leach questions? Because sometimes I think if you ask certain coaches questions, you're not going to know what's going to come out of their mouth, but you're a little worried. Are they going to be mad? Are they going to come after you? Like Nick Saban's had a lot of hot takes. These coaches always have hot takes. I think a reporter could be easygoing, asking the questions they need to for their job, and then just ask them curious. Well, do you believe in ghosts? And you'll never know where he's going to go off to. You could ask him serious questions, and then all of a sudden he's going to answer that serious question and then go down a different route. You just never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. You loved any type of halftime interview. You loved an after-game interview. He was just a guy that you could tell from listening to how people talk to him, listening to him talk, reading his book, anything about him. He just did things his way. And I think a lot of us need to start doing that, myself included. Just do things our way. He did things different. He wore blue jeans to things. He loved cargo shorts. He would walk to work. There's a video. I have a Washington State hoodie on just because of Mike Leach. I had this when he was there. He would walk miles to work. And he talked about how he knew the animals were living in the houses. That was Mike Leach that you just loved to watch. But people outside of that need to know he was a football coach. Didn't look like a football coach. He was just that guy that learned how to become a football coach. I think he played in high school. He didn't play in college. He loved baseball. He wanted to be a lawyer, then had this itch to say he wanted to be a coach and said he wanted to try. He couldn't go on with life without saying that he didn't try. I have read every book on air raid stuff that involves Mike Leach, Hal Mummy, that I can get my hands on. I have his book, Swing Your Sword. I have the Cornfield book. I look at anything I can about Coach Leach, any stories. He has done a lot for college coaches. He's done a lot for college football. He's done a lot for high school coaches. He seems to work well with high school coaches. Just he never had a playbook, but people broke down his offense and it just became all the rage for high school. Stretch the Cornfield. I apologize. It was Stretch the Cornfield. I have that one. I've read it a couple of times. I am going to be rereading it. And then I have the book on Hal Mummy. I believe it was Throw It Deep. I apologize. This is horrible radio. I was just really thinking about just what to say about Coach Leach for never having to have met him. But I have all the books, and I'm going to reread his Swing Your Sword book. I just ordered. I'm going to get the Geronimo book. I want to get everything I can on Coach Leach. What brought Coach Leach's attention to me personally? In high school, we ran the power I triple option. You had 3 running backs. Sometimes you go 2 tight end and have 1 running back. Sometimes you just go straight I formation. The fullback was always offset, or the H-back was always offset. And that's all I knew. It's all I knew. I played O-line, didn't really know. You don't really know. You understand that you do option, but as a high school kid, truly maybe you don't know. And I went back to help coach my high school, and all I knew was that at that time. But what really piqued my interest was when I really started playing football in high school, and I just knew option. But you watch college, you watch the NFL, they were under center still. They were their I formation. They were all those things. You watch college, it was this still some under center, but it was really a lot of spread attack. I know Coach Spurrier in Florida did their thing. For me personally, you were watching Illinois kind of win spread. I'm from Illinois. I'm an Illinois fan, of course. You saw Oregon do their thing with Chip Kelly. You were seeing Florida and Tim Tebow before that, and then at Utah when they were doing it there. I can go on and on about teams that were doing it, but they were all the rage. But there was also Texas Tech. And when Mike Leach became the head coach there in 2000 or 2001, it started to grow. And what really perked your interest was watching these teams. Now, again, we were power I, triple option. It was a forbidden fruit to go say anything about that stuff. And if my high school coach is listening, that's not a knock. It was just, I know how he coach. I know how you were. We're going to run the ball, run the option. It was like a forbidden fruit. Well, my friend Brad Miller, who's been on this podcast before, a lot. I'll never forget. We're at his house. We've been watching college football our whole lives. And these things had just perked our interest, especially when you're seeing the dynamic of Oregon and Florida and everything. And we watched Texas Tech a couple times. But we were watching that Texas Tech game versus Texas. And seeing that game the way it went back and forth, Texas Tech was up. Texas came back. That drive at the end to Michael Crabtree. Now, the players make plays, and Coach Leach will probably be the first to tell you that the players went out there, did their thing. Watching that in high school made me realize, because I knew I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a coach when I was 14, 15 years old. I just knew. And I said, I'm going to learn spread throwing the football because of that game. The run stuff from Oregon, like, again, you're in high school, you're just watching it. If it's not exactly what you do, you're not going to really watch it. Oregon kind of did some option stuff, but they were pistol, they were spread, they were up tempo. Then you're watching Texas Tech just kind of throw it. Now, that year they ran it more than they probably have not ran it that much until, I believe, this year at Mississippi State. I could be wrong. And that made me want to learn the spread. And then when I started coaching, like I said, it was just all I knew was option. And then even then, I was a little worried to learn spread because I thought this is what I know. Part of me thought I would coach in my high school, and that's what it would be. Then I started to branch out. I'm starting to research. Twitter's becoming bigger. The college football Twitter is not what it now. It wasn't even half that back then. Like there was still hard to come by some things. You still had to pay money. The in-person clinics. I started to branch out, try to read things. Google was still, it was big. You're Googling things, you're trying to read things. And I started to really learn and hear like air raid, because you're in high school, you might hear that from time to time, but you're trying to figure out what it is, passing the football. And I knew I kept going back to that Texas game. And I'm like, does this do with Mike Leach? Absolutely. This guy's a genius. And when I still really started to grow as a coach and try to figure out like what's the air raid, these air raid concepts, that was Mike Leach. And then you start to learn, well, how Mummy's the one that started. So I really started to dive into that. And then the coaching grew where I am seeing Coach Mackey. I'm seeing Coach Drew Piscopo. I'm seeing Coach Patrick Taylor. I'm seeing all these coaches post this stuff and talk about it and really learn it. Mike Leach. It's from them. Learning how Mummy started with Mike Leach there. You read the whole thing about that in the books. And you learn all that stuff. And so for me, it's you look back at it and go, well, because of Mike Leach and the success he was having at Texas Tech and seeing throw the football for me kind of turned me into a spread guy. And if it wasn't for that, I'd probably be still an under center option guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to learn it. And I studied it. I haven't studied as much as some of the coaches out there that might be listening, might not be, but I have the plays. I try to look at it. I try to study it. And if I ever become an offensive coordinator again or a head coach, you best believe I'm going to try to implement some of these air raid concepts. And high school coaches all over trying to do these concepts. You started to see other colleges use these concepts. You started to see NFL use some of these concepts. Now, how Mummy had his way of doing things, Mike Leach took it and tweaked some things and did things his way. And, Mike Leach has been in Division I for a very long time. And the thing is that he may not look like a football coach. He looks like a lawyer. He found a way to communicate with athletes, get the best out of them, and do things. He became an offensive coordinator at Oklahoma after working at Kentucky, had a great year, became the head coach at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is what it is because of Coach Leach. And it's factual. People really didn't talk about Texas Tech graduation rates. People didn't talk about Texas Tech as a football program. He took over that program, and now people know it. It put it on the map. Washington State, he then took a couple years off after being fired, goes to Washington State, puts them on the map. Now, everybody, I have a Washington State hoodie because of Coach Leach. He put them on the map, rebuilt that, had some rough years, built that program up, then goes to Mississippi State and was starting to do the same thing. That guy took jobs outside of maybe Mississippi State that most people weren't going to take. They took a chance on Mike Leach when he was at Texas Tech. People didn't want to go to Washington State. He took that. He took that as a challenge. And I know his win percentage is a .596, I believe. And in order to be considered for College Football Hall of Fame, it's got to be a 6. But the impact that he had on college football, the impact on the passing attacks on offense, just the way he was talking about things that you could see. And again, this is not me knowing personally, just what you see on TV, what you hear about people who actually talk to him. He made a big impact. He was a genius, but he was very curious. He was going to, I heard stories. I know people that went and talked to him. They were like, yeah, in a football meeting, if we're there for an hour, we're talking football for 15 minutes. The rest is talking about us. It's talking about everything else. Because to him, I think he was more about life. I think it was more about learning about people. I think he was more learning about all those different types of things, very curious about the world. And because he marched to the beat of his own drum, I'm sure he made people mad. He would answer questions differently. It's probably political, where he said he would go one way political or think this way, but he didn't care. He wasn't really out there probably to make people happy all the time or make friends. He was about providing for his family. You read about that. He was about making a program better. He was about recruiting those athletes and making them better. He was about making the program be put on the map and do those things and just do things his way. People can talk about his offense all the time. People criticize it. He needs to run the football more. He needs to do this. And a part of me thinks sometimes that's true. He was going to sit there and say, I'm running this because that's what he wants to do. And he did it. He lived and died by it. Sometimes he died by it, but he lived a lot. He won a lot of football games. And I think he was a coach that over a large landscape, we all wanted him to win a national title. That was one of the only things holding back was the air raid can't win you a national title. If he would have won a national title, I don't even know if the win percentage would matter. They would put him in the Hall of Fame right now. But the impact he's had on the entire college football landscape and coaches, he needs to be in the Football Hall of Fame for college football. He was one of the best college football coaches there ever was, just because of the programs took over, how he's able to get them to win, stayed there. Stayed at Texas Tech for a long time. He stayed at Washington State for a long time. But he was planning on staying at Mississippi State for a long time. He was there to try to build those programs up. Getting fired from Texas Tech, maybe he's still there. He had a big-time chance to go to the SEC that he couldn't pass up from Washington State. You know why he's at Washington State? He felt like he loved that program in a spot that was going to do well. And they have. They compete. They put out a nice tweet saying, we are who we are because of Coach Leach. Renovations to places and everything else. When he got hired at Washington State, people were thinking this air raid was very complicated. And the players said, well, in 3 days, we've already installed it. Like, that's how easy it was. Talking to coaches that got to go be around him, his friend, they said that they would go to a practice because they would think that our practices are easy at high school. They're super easy. And they go watch his and they go, oh my gosh. And they had to like change everything. They said his is so much simpler. And people think the teams were soft. They weren't. He wasn't soft. You saw how he coached kids. He could get after kids. He had that trust. He had that bond with them. He left his footprint on college football. He was a genius. He was an offensive genius when it comes to throwing football and finding ways to get receivers open and get them the ball. So, Coach Leach, you've done a lot for the coaches, college football. You're gone too early, 61. Prayers are to his family dealing with this. Prayers to the Mississippi State community and their players. Coach Leach, you're not forgotten. Right now, the whole coaching world is hurting, but they're coming together. You can see it on Twitter and Facebook. They're coming together. Analysts are coming together. And someone compared this to the Kobe Bryant passing for the NBA. This is the same thing for college football. You see college football coaches coming out, coming together. And I think people are going to come together more. And one thing for me is I had the opportunity to go, could have had the opportunity to go meet him. And I didn't take it. So through podcasting, hopefully, if I have the opportunity to meet coaches, I'm going to do my best. If I have a basketball game, I can't do it. Got baseball practice, baseball game, I can't do it. But I'm going to do my best. If I have opportunities and I think I can make it work, I'm going to meet coaches, high school coaches. Coach Rudolph, if you ever listen to this at Ohio, I know I have to come meet you in person. But we have to meet people. We have to have conversations. We have to learn. We have to be curious and learn things. And I have to do better. But my best thing is I'm going to try to meet some of you coaches, try to do that. Didn't get a chance to do that. Um, I think everybody's hurting right now for this, and we're hurting for someone that we all never met, and that's what he meant. So, Coach Leach, may you rest in peace. Prayers for your family going through this time, that whole community. But Coach Leach, you've done a lot, and we will always remember you as the pirate. We'll remember you to all the air raid things you've done. We're always going to call six. And don't forget, people, always swing your sword.